When you're ready, we'll start with opening comments, then go to questions after that.
Afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here again, and thanks again for all the hard work you're doing to keep the nation informed about this crisis. It's putting strains on you as well, just similar to the ones that we're experiencing here in the Pentagon and across the fleet in terms of maintaining social separation and still trying to do our jobs at the same time. So we appreciate you all being here and helping us get our messages out. The USNS Mercy and Comfort are now providing a full spectrum of care, including general surgery, critical care, and ward care for adults, so local hospitals can focus on COVID-19. The Red Crosses and the white hulls of the USNS Comfort and USNS Mercy secured to our two largest cities is just the most visible example of what the Navy and Marine Corps team is doing to combat this pandemic. Other examples are numerous. I'm going to give you a few just so you understand how we're engaged in this. The U.S. Navy's Expeditionary Medical Facilities, or EMFs, are being deployed to temporary medical stations in the Convention Center, Dallas, and New Orleans. The Marine Corps Systems Command and Naval Information Warfare Center Pacific recently assisted the UC San Diego Medical Center in designing parts using 3D printing to enable simultaneous ventilation of multiple patients who need ventilators. The Navy Medical Research Center has medical professionals deployed around the globe conducting COVID-19 diagnostic and surveillance testing. The Naval Research Laboratory is providing technical support in several areas, including fluid mechanics and biotechnology. And there are many, many more of these examples. And we've seen every member of our force step forward to continue our nation's defense and to protect our people. And that includes our reserve forces. It's telling that within 24 hours of the initial call going out for medical reserve professionals for Comfort and Mercy, over 200 respondents volunteered and came forward to serve on those ships. And our reserve component is coming through in other areas too, such as air transport and logistics. We use the phrase all hands on deck pretty often around here, but that is absolute reality when it comes to our response to COVID-19, and we're seeing that every day. All of this underscores the bedrock truth that our greatest strength will always be our people, and our ultimate purpose will always be the defense of the nation. Our highest obligation as leaders is to ensure the safety and readiness of every sailor and Marine on the watch, as well as their families back home, so that they can do their mission. That's why we're taking every precaution to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in the fleet. I know you've all been following the situation on the USS Teddy Roosevelt very closely, as have we. We've been in close contact with PAC Fleet, 7th Fleet, the Carrier Strike Group Commander, and the commanding officer of the Teddy Roosevelt, establishing the facts and adjusting our operations accordingly to get the crew what it needs in this time. As you heard from Admiral Aquilino, the PAC Fleet Commander, yesterday, the situation is very dynamic, and we are supporting our subordinate commanders to ensure we protect our sailors and our Marines so that they can protect the homeland and maintain their readiness to the best of our ability. I recognize that there have been a lot of questions about the Teddy Roosevelt, particularly over the last 24 hours. So I gave some updates yesterday when I was out in California, but here's the timeline of some of the actions that we've taken with the Teddy Roosevelt since she deployed. Prior to deployment, we embarked a special medical team on the ship, and prior to the post visit in Vietnam, the World Health Organization had identified less than 20 COVID-19 cases in Vietnam at the time, and all of them were in Hanoi, pretty far away from where the ship was going in Da Nang. And they had seen no recent new cases before the ship pulled in. We conducted screening for sailors returning from Liberty, including temperature readings, and anyone who we may have suspected having been exposed was quarantined immediately, and we had no positive tests at that time. At the end of the 14-day observation period aboard the ship, there were 2 sailors with symptoms who had positive tests. They were promptly isolated and flown off the ship to Guam, to the hospital there, the Naval Hospital in Guam. Their symptoms have since resolved. We identified and quarantined all those who we suspected of being in close contact with those that had tested positive. When the TR pulled into port, all sailors with confirmed positive tests were moved off the ship and isolated immediately. We continued contact tracing, quarantine, and monitoring to fulfill the process of understanding who might have been infected, and we did that in a very methodical way based on who we thought may have had contact with the sailors who tested positive. On Sunday evening, after being in port for a couple of days, the commanding officer expressed concern that the spaces off the ship were not sufficient to isolate at the pace that he felt was necessary. We also received some feedback from the medical team that they were concerned about the same problems in terms of not having enough space off the ship. Let me emphasize that this is exactly what we want our commanding officers, our medical teams to do. We need a lot of transparency in this process, and we want that information to flow up through the chain of command, and that's what they did, and we appreciate their ability to let us know at our highest levels where we can apply resources to help the situation immediately. We began seeking additional space in Guam and elsewhere right away. We're making progress on that process. We already have nearly 1,000 personnel off the ship right now. And in the next couple of days, we expect to have about 2,700 of them off the ship. One thing I want to emphasize as well is that we cannot and will not remove all the sailors from the ship. And that's not what the commanding officer requested either, nor the medical team. Our plan has always been to remove as much of the crew as we can while maintaining for the ship's safety. It's important to understand that just because it's big and it floats and it has a lot of people on it, the comparison of the TR to a cruise ship pretty much ends there. This ship has weapons on it, it has munitions on it, it has expensive aircraft, and it has a nuclear power plant. It requires a certain number of people on that ship to maintain the safety and security of the ship. There are less than 100 personnel who have tested positive so far. None of them are seriously ill, and not one of them has been hospitalized to date. Currently, the numbers are, we have 93 positive tests, 86 exhibiting symptoms and 7 without symptoms, 593 negative tests. And we've tested about 24% of the crew. And so we've got 1,273 of the crew that have been tested. Some of those results have not come back yet. We have accelerated testing and are deep cleaning all the spaces on the ship. We are providing the commanding officer what he has requested, and we are doing our best to accelerate the pace wherever we can. Like the rest of the country and the world, we are learning more about stopping the spread of this virus each day. The front lines are constantly being redrawn in this process. Stopping the spread of this virus is the fight we are in right now. Right now, the Teddy Roosevelt is a frontline theater in this new battle, and we have to respond with the skill and agility and direct communication required to protect our people and our nation. I'm confident that the Navy and Marine Corps team will save lives and protect this nation, as it always has and it always will. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
All right, Lita Baldor, AP.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. You gave us a good update on the numbers. I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about where the sailors are going. And you mentioned Guam and other places. Are there plans, or is there the need to take the sailors to somewhere other than Guam? And do you have enough hospital rooms that you think you'll be able to accommodate everyone? My second part of the question is, there's been a lot of discussion from the Admiral about this rotation of sailors offshore to make sure that they're okay and then back onto the ship. In doing that, about how long do you think the ship will have to be in port in Guam? It sounds like that will be at least several weeks to a month anyway. Thank you.
So let me answer the first question. I may have misspoke. We're still only looking at locations on Guam right now for the sailors that we need to take off. What we are looking at is beyond just the facilities that the Navy has, or space or real estate that the Navy has, or the DOD has on Guam. So we are in conversations with the governor of Guam to see if there's an ability to free up some hotel space, and they're working that one pretty diligently right now. It looks like that is going to be one of the areas that we can send people to. As far as how long this is going to take, I don't have a good estimate on that. I will tell you it won't be resolved in the next couple days. It will take some time, but we're still looking at that and trying to get a good understanding of what that might impact with respect to operational readiness. I would also like to emphasize that if the ship needs to go, if there's a crisis, the ship can go. That's part of the reason why we're maintaining the skills on the ship that we need if we have to move it in the case of an emergency. So I don't know if CNO wants to add anything more to that, but with respect to the operational considerations.
So I think in terms of numbers, so I think you mentioned, Mr. Secretary, we have over 1,000 off the ship right now. We'll have nearly triple that number of beds and spaces available by Friday. And we'll be expediting. People are moving off the ship as we're briefing right now. In terms of the operational schedule, I'll just tell you that in terms of testing, we continue to get more efficient. And so over the past 2 days, we've gone from 300 tests up to 500 tests. And so The long pole in the tent, of course, is getting those testing results back as we get those samples to a DoD facility for processing. And I don't want to talk about the operational schedule of the ship at this moment.
All right, Jennifer, we'll go to you next.
When we asked about this last week, you said that you had no evidence that it was the port visit to Vietnam. Have you changed your assessment in light of the exponentially rising numbers? And was it the letter from the captain that caused you to start to move faster to remove people from the ship? And is the captain going to be punished for having raised this in very stark terms?
I'll take a shot at the first several questions, and I'll turn it over to the CNO. With respect to your first question about, remind me again, I'm sorry.
The port call in
The
Vietnam.
port call. We don't have any forensics that would indicate that that was what caused or brought the virus onto the ship. As I mentioned, when the crew came back on the ship, we tested certain members that we thought might have an issue. None of those tests came back positive. So as I said before, we also had crew members flying on and off the ship from the air wing. So we're not really sure where it could have come. Someone could have brought it with them from San Diego when the ship actually deployed. We just don't know. Once the virus gets on a ship like that, it's going to spread, and it's hard to tell where it actually started. With respect to the prompting of the CO, we've been in constant communication with that team. My chief of staff has had conversations with him. I think there were some timing issues related to when that letter was sent, when it finally made its way out into the media. But we've been reacting, obviously, because we want them to tell us what their issues are so we can react to them. So I don't know if you have.
Yeah, it was a risk-informed decision to go into Vietnam. So at the time, there were about 15 or 16 cases there up north in Hanoi, and the ship pulled into Da Nang. Today, there are 203 cases in Vietnam and no deaths. So just to put that in perspective, and the WHO has graded Vietnam very highly across 12 or 13 different categories in terms of their reaction pretty early on and their ability to sustain that. As the Secretary mentioned, the ship deployed in mid-January. So prior to that period, most of the crew and the air wing were off on pre-movement leave. So that would have been over the holiday period. So there could have been asymptomatic cases on